It is DFS season here at Club Fantasy, and we are in the conference championship round. We've got two games. This video is going to focus on the Buffalo Bills versus the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to break down the DFS Showdown slates to tell you how to build the most optimal lineup. Stay tuned. Oh, Captain, my Captain, this is Club Fantasy's DFS Showdown slate video. We're going to be breaking down this week's AFC Conference Championship game, the Buffalo Bills versus the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm your host, Joshua Hudson. You can find me at the One Hudsonian. He is our DFS expert, Austin Amandolia, at Austin_FFL. Austin, these two have kind of felt like on a collision course since the beginning of the season. Josh Allen wins the regular season matchups. Patrick Mahomes says, keep trying, buddy, because I'm 3-0 against you in the playoffs. How do we see this game rolling? Because it's going to be a fun one to break down.
Yeah, this is always a fun matchup between these two teams, although I am a little sad it's not the Ravens, but whatever. I'll accept Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes. That's a pretty incredible matchup. I mean, I will go out on a limb and say Kansas City pulls it out once again, just because it's hard for me to bet against Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City.
Yeah, I think it'd actually be a lot of fun to see a KC Philly rematch in the Super Bowl just 2 years later. But I just don't know. Even as bad as KC has been this year, I'm just waiting for Philadelphia to play a complete football game. Like it's so bad right now. Like it's so bad. But we're not here to talk about the Eagles. We're here to talk about the Bills versus the Chiefs. Austin, remind everybody where they can play these DFS Showdown slates against us here at Club Fantasy.
Yes, we will have a DraftKings league. We have a DraftKings league on DraftKings where you can. It's on DraftKings. Did you know it's on DraftKings? You could follow the link in the show description and go to DraftKings to join our DraftKings league, where we will have 3 DraftKings contests, 2 of which will be showdown slates. We'll have a contest for each game, and then we'll also have a contest where you can play both games at once. It's a 9% lineup for that matchup. There are $2 entry fees. Small contest. You can come, practice, try and take our money. And again, that link is in the show link. By the way, it's on DraftKings, the league.
In case you didn't know. Before we get into everything, head over to trophysmack.com/WOFF. That's WOFF. Our sister site, Women of Fantasy Football, is partnering with Trophy Smack as we continue our efforts to support women in sports. Any achievement-based gear. Celebrate your championships that you won and during the fantasy football season in style. Get those trophies, belts, rings, wall smack. All of it is customizable. Get it all at trophysmack.com/WOFF, WOFF. And from now until January 31st, if you buy a championship belt or trophy, add a ring to your cart, enter promo code WOFF, that's WOFF, and get that ring for free. Once again, trophysmack.com/WOFF, WOFF. All right, Austin, let's get into it. Our first segment, Captain Chalk. These are the chalky captains that everybody is likely to pick because you know the names and they're just that damn good. For as good as the playoff Chiefs are, we're pivoting to the likely MVP of the NFL this season, one Josh Allen.
Yes, I do think Josh Allen ends up being the most highly rostered quarterback player in the captain spot this week. I'm a little bit on the fence about whether or not I want to lean into the chalk. So last week when they were playing the Ravens, I was kind of like, this may be a good time to pivot off of Josh Allen because he didn't hit a ceiling in the wild card round, and he didn't hit a ceiling last week. It was really about Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson from a fantasy football perspective. Even though they lost the game, they were better fantasy performers than Josh Allen. I'm a little bit, I can make a case either way. I like the idea of fading Josh Allen as a captain. I would put him in my lineup still, to be clear. But I think he might not be the optimal captain because I do think this is going to end up being a defensive battle. And so I could see him only scoring 20 points, which, while that's good for your redraft league, it is probably not going to be the optimal player, because the optimal player in the captain spot will probably have 30 points or more. So I like the idea of fading him. Now, I say that. I also like the idea of playing him. So I'm really on the fence. This is really all to say, like, diversify your portfolio. If you're playing multiple entries, have some Josh Allen in your captain spot, get different elsewhere. Like, don't just, and get different in some places. Like, don't just get stuck that it's Josh Allen every time or not Josh Allen every time. Make sure you're balancing it a little bit, because this game, it could go a couple of different ways. Like, the last time these two teams played, Josh Allen ended up with 25 fantasy points on DraftKings. That was pretty good. He didn't play like a great game though, and he got that last touchdown really right at the end. So he almost didn't even hit 20 points in that matchup. So it's all to say, like, balance your builds, do some different things. Don't get stuck in just one spot.
Yeah, but this is the year for Josh Allen where he's really got to play Superman. So just throwing that out there. But let's talk about some Kansas City Chiefs here in the next segment. The Mutineer. These are the contrarian captain choices that offer variety and upside in some of your larger tournaments. Playoff Travis Kelce is just built different, and I don't think there's really any other way to describe it.
Yeah, I said it last week. Travis Kelce is on the NBA vet treatment. He's been put on ice throughout the year, and here he comes. And he sure as heck came last week. Had over 100 yards, caught a bunch of catches, had one of the most badass touchdown catches I've ever seen in my life, between Mahomes falling down and the look down Kelce gave afterwards, and managing to not get a taunting penalty while doing that.
Right?
All just super cold. Yeah, I'm going back to Travis Kelce. And this isn't just about Kelce. It is also actually about the Bills. The Bills have not been great against tight ends since week 14 of the teams in the playoffs that are remaining. Of the 4 teams remaining, they've allowed the most points per game to the tight end position, averaging 16 points per game. It should be a little bit higher than that if Mark Andrews catches that last 2-point conversion, right? That brings it up a little bit. But Andrews and Isaiah Likely were able to perform pretty well against this team last week. I see Travis Kelce and Noah Gray doing similar work, but I think Travis Kelce will carry the bulk of that usage.
And staying on the Kansas City side, this is where Patrick Mahomes shines the most.
Yes. Here's the thing about Patrick Mahomes that I think could go a little bit overlooked, and why I think he's an interesting contrarian option. People might think back, oh, well, Buffalo won this game, so Patrick Mahomes must not have played that well. Well, Patrick Mahomes in that game, yeah, he only threw for 196 yards. He threw for 3 touchdowns, though. And his fantasy performance was depressed a little bit because he did throw 2 interceptions. So he ends up with just under 18 DraftKings points in that matchup. I think that he's still the type of player that can spread the ball around. And what we see him do in the playoffs is honestly similar to what we see Josh Allen do in the playoffs, where he says, I'm going to run the ball a little bit more. And he is known for those gashing quarterback runs and scrambles, and he can get a big bunch of chunk yards that way. I think too, like, there's probably going to be a lot of focus on Travis Kelce. Maybe Kelce doesn't score a touchdown this week. And so then you want Mahomes spreading the ball around and getting it to a bunch of other receivers. So I like the idea of having him as a contrarian option to pivot off of Josh Allen. I would still play Josh Allen in my lineup with Mahomes. This is basically me betting on the overhitting. But otherwise, I'm good with either Kelce or Mahomes in my captain spot.
Yeah, and staying with the Chiefs here, the biggest thing that opens opportunities for Kelce are the speedsters on the outside, like getting Hollywood Brown back, utilizing him and Xavier Worthy to stretch those defenses. That's going to open up the middle of the field for Kelce, for Noah Gray. And clearly we saw last week against the Ravens, they cannot cover tight ends very well. So I love the contrarian choice of Kelce there in the lineup. So your next category here is the first mate, because every captain needs a reliable crew. These are the standouts that maximize your lineups. Let's stay on that Chiefs side. Isaiah Pacheco comes back, and it's still the Kareem Hunt show.
Yeah, I was honestly surprised by this. I thought coming off of the bye week during the wild card round when Kansas City had the first seed bye, that they would get Isaiah Pacheco more involved. And my guess is that he's still not 100%. He's still getting worked back into the offense, into a full game play. Maybe by the time we get to the Super Bowl, it's a little bit more evenly matched with Kareem Hunt, but Hunt just looked better in the game last week against the Texans. And I see no reason for that to change in just a week. So I think Kareem Hunt continues to have a decent role in this offense. And they've particularly utilized him in the red zone, which I feel like honestly makes sense when you think about these two player types. Like Isaiah Pacheco, he's like a speedster. He looks like he runs tough, but he's kind of a small dude. And so in the red zone, like that's not always a good formula for getting actually into the end zone. Whereas Kareem Hunt, he's going to mow you down, and he's becoming the kind of the more reliable end zone running back because of that. So I like going towards Hunt for that reason. He has the touchdown upside, particularly if I'm playing contests on FanDuel. I want Kareem Hunt over Isaiah Pacheco.
On the flip side, Khalil Shakir has really been the most reliable Bills pass catcher this season. He had close to double, I believe, the receiving yards of the next closest individual on this team. So love you adding in Khalil Shakir, but why specifically in this matchup against Kansas City?
Yeah, it's really he's the only Bills receiver that I feel like I can rely on. And at some point you're going to need that. Now, I will say I put him in here because I put two players for this category. And there is part of me that is playing there's part of me that's playing this as a Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen build. And I start to run out of salary really quickly. So I might not even have Khalil Shakir in there. And honestly, there's part of me that wants to play this as a 5-1 Kansas City Buffalo build, but I have Josh Allen in there because I think Josh Allen's going to soak up most of the production on the Buffalo side. Like James Cook, he's been good, but I think this is a tough Kansas City run defense, and it's not going to be as easy as it's been. So it's going to come down to Josh Allen. And I could see that Kansas City spreads the ball around in a way that allows their players to have more upside, especially because I'm putting a kicker in this matchup as well. And then you have Josh Allen taking up everything, and it's only Khalil Shakir that really gets volume, but Josh Allen runs 2 touchdowns. Like the way this game script can go, I could see Josh Allen taking up most of the production. But if you're building a lineup that's maybe a 4-2 build and you want a Bills player in there, I think Khalil Shakir is probably the most sure thing outside of James Cook, who I think might have a down game. So that's why he's in here, is mostly to give the Bills some representation and because I put 2 players for this category.
So basically you're hating on the Bills. Confirmed. Gotcha. Okay. Next category here is the deck scrubber. Next category here is the deck scrubbers. These are the cheaper punt plays that can make a lineup based on one player limited opportunity. Well, you've already said you hate the Bills, so we're going to stick with the Kansas City Chiefs. And once again, you're coming with the kickers. Austin, I'm going to need a temperature check on you because I feel like you're running a fever these last few weeks.
Yeah, well, what can I say? Ryan just convinced me that kickers matter. No, okay, I don't hate the Bills. I just think that their players have less upside at this salary. I'm picking Harrison Butker as one of my options. I kind of think you could go with either kicker, but I really think Harrison Butker is the better option because primarily I think that first off, Kansas City is a little bit less aggressive of a team than Buffalo is when it comes to 4th down. I think Kansas City, if it's 4th and 3, they're more likely to kick a field goal than Buffalo is. And so, but like Kansas City throughout the entire season, they've been able to march down the field, but then they get stuck at some point and end up kicking a decent amount of field goals. So it's really that. I don't think I would play Tyler Bass because if it's 4th and 3, I do think I've heard Tony Romo say this enough times that it is like ingrained in my brain from the past 2 weeks. Every time it's 4th and 3, they like run the ball with Josh Allen and they pick up the first down. I don't think Tyler Bass is going to get field goals. So it's really about Harrison Butker or bust on the kicker side. And at the salary range, it's kind of the safest thing. Maybe you throw a defense in there, but I feel like Butker has more upside than any of the defenses or some of the like 3rd string Bills receivers who don't really get that much action.
So you talked earlier when we were talking about Travis Kelce about how the Bills are not so great against the tight end position. Do we think Noah Gray can kind of replicate what Isaiah Likely was able to do last week?
I wouldn't say that because I don't think Noah Gray is as good of a player as Isaiah Likely is. But I do think that he can get enough production to be relevant. Before this year, Noah Gray has been this player that perennially the over-under for his receptions line is like at 0.5. It's whether or not he's going to catch one. And his receiving yards line, I've seen it multiple times because I bet it a lot in the over the past few years. It's like right around 12.5. And so what you're betting on when you bet him is like, can he catch one ball for 13 yards? That's probably similar to what you're expecting for him this week. But I do think that there's a little bit more upside with him. I think he could get 2 or 3 catches because I do expect this Bills defense to really try and focus on Kelce. And when they do, it will open up things for Noah Gray. Noah Gray did also have 3 targets against the Houston Texans, so he's staying involved. And it's really with that amount of volume, if he ends up in the end zone, that's scoring pretty dang well for a player who is priced more cheaply than Juju Smith-Schuster, Ray Davis, Matt Collins, Curtis Samuel, and Ty Johnson.
Yeah, it was really weird seeing Curtis Samuel actually get involved last week. I feel like I hadn't heard from him in like 2 months.
2 years.
I was trying to be nice to Curtis Samuel, Austin. Why you got to be a dick? Friendly reminder, you can play these showdown slates against us here at Club Fantasy. Head over to the link in the description, whether you're watching us over on YouTube or listening to us on your favorite podcast network. Our final category here is the Kraken. These are the lineup traps that sink the ship. The big midseason trade acquisition of DeAndre Hopkins hasn't really looked so big of late, Austin.
Yeah, it was like it worked for a minute there. I think I picked him up, or no, I still had him on one of my dynasty leagues, and I was like, oh, this might be working out. Look at the usage he's getting. He kind of took the place of Rasheed Rice for a second with the volume. And as the season has gone on, it's just gotten less and less usage. And there are times where he doesn't seem super. He seems kind of slow. Like I think some of this is aging. I think some of it's they got Hollywood Brown back. They've been a run-heavy, run-oriented team. They've used the tight ends a lot. I think they probably had lower play volume overall. Like they seem to have just slowed down as an offense overall over the past couple of years. So there's a lot of reasons that I don't like playing DeAndre Hopkins. And it just boils down to, I don't think he's getting the utilization to have the necessary upside to pay his salary. I would rather take the risk on Hollywood Brown, who didn't catch a ball last week, had 2 targets, but I think has more upside because I think we've seen it more recently that he will get utilized in a more significant way than D-Hop will at this point of the season.
I mean, if you get points for yards run down the field without catches, Hollywood Brown's your guy. I mean, that's what he's going to do. He's going to stretch the field. So speaking of stretching the field, this next guy, look, if you want 1 catch for 40 yards, he's going to play for you. But outside of that, Keon Coleman's been a huge disappointment this year.
Yeah, rip to my dynasty shares of him. Hopefully that changes in future years, but yeah, it's the same deal.
Shakir started off pretty slow his first few years in the league, so
that is true. But it's the same logic as what I was mentioning with DeAndre Hopkins. It's just the target volume is not there, and I think it's a similar case with Keon Coleman. There's just other guys in his price range that I would rather be looking at. Keon Coleman, he's a whopping $6,600. Sorry, that's in the captain spot. Let me give you the accurate price before I lead you all astray. Keon Coleman is a whopping $4,400. He is just $400 cheaper than Tyler Bass. Miraculously, I think that maybe Coleman does outscore Tyler Bass in this matchup. If Tyler Bass scores 1 field goal, it's going to be tight. Otherwise, I think that Coleman can beat that. But he's more expensive than both defenses. I think both defenses are sneakily interesting in this game just because I think it could be low scoring. I would rather play Dalton Kincaid, surprisingly, but especially I'd rather play Ty Johnson than I would Keon Coleman, and that's not great.
No, definitely not. And to your Dalton Kincaid point. Empty targets, man. If you get fantasy points for those, sign me up, because good Lord, he's another one that's been terrible this season. All right, one more time, head over to trophysmack.com/WOFF. That's WOFF. Get all of your achievement-based needs, that championship swag, and help us in our continued efforts to support women in sports. He is Austin Amandolia at Austin_FFL. I am Josh Hudson at the One Hudsonian. Of course, be sure to follow everything that we do at Club Fantasy at Club Fantasy FFL. The URL is clubfantasyffl.com. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, the podcast feed as we continue to grow. We appreciate all the love and support. We got the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. We're going to have one more video when it comes to this. Be sure to check out both of our conference championship DFS breakdowns, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for the Super Bowl.